from the programme you'll see that we've said that Martyn is a regular guy who happens to have a disability called spinal muscular atrophy. This means he cannot walk, lift anything heavier than a book, or shower himself. However, he has a master's degree, has travelled as far as Australia, and pretty frequently, I think, from your blog, I don't know if anyone's seen it, drives his own car and lives independently in London. And his aim is to inspire, inform, and change the world around disability issues. So I'm going to really, I'll put you in the hot seat, Martyn, and just say, tell us about your childhood and what schools you went to and those sorts of things.
Okay, yeah, so I'm 28 now, so I had to cast a few years back, to remember the very early years now. I grew up in Cambridgeshire. There's a little village called Newbury near to St Ives, for anyone, a few nodded heads there, yeah. And so, yeah, essentially it was a small village. I think it was about 200 children at the school, and they hadn't had certainly a wheelchair user. So I was having a chat with Mum yesterday just to sort of get some of her input on that part of the story as well. And yeah, I think the school were very, very helpful and open to try and facilitate me, but equally having not had a disabled student, I think they were quite wary and worried about what it would entail, as were my parents, and so that there was a lot of apprehension, I think, before or as the discussion started. One fortunate part was the school was on one level, so in terms of the access, the main thing for me with the wheelchair was obviously for me, just to get around and not have stairs, so that was a good kind of first part. And then obviously there was the statementing, which I don't know all the ins and outs of being a 4-year-old, what went on at that time, but it sounded like on the whole it was relatively straightforward there. And I think essentially the main part of my statement was to have a learning support assistant, as they were called then, who would then support me in the class with any sort of more actually physical help there, doing my physio routine, helping me to the toilet, helping me eat my lunch. So in the end I had one person that was with me all day long when I was at school. And I don't know what the funding climate was at that point generally, but the fact was that was signed off, and that would have made the world of difference to have enabled me to access the curriculum and be very included, I would say, with my fellow classmates.
Did you manage to go to the same secondary school as your classmates?
No, that was the progression from Holywell was the main school was called the Ivo, and that wasn't on one floor, there were many, many steps. So, and I think that there's a theme here that my mum and dad were the drivers of all of this at that point. And yeah, they had meetings with the head of the Ivo, and I think the Ivo were trying to facilitate me with comments like, can't his friends lift him up the steps? When you've got a 100+ kilogram wheelchair, 11-year-olds probably aren't going to manage to lift the wheelchair. And obviously it wouldn't have enabled me to be as independent if I had to rely on other people to lift me up steps every time I went to go to my class. So having tried to fight and get the funding to adapt the school, I think it was felt that it just wasn't going to happen. So, Impington is about half an hour away from where my parents lived, and I was pretty upset actually at the time, because obviously I'd made all my friends in the village at Holywell School, and then had to leave them all behind and go off to a big school, scary anyway, but to go off and have to make new friends, it was quite a big deal.
Yeah. Okay. Can you remember your favourite teacher at school, and what why were they your favourite, and what difference did that make?
Yeah, I think probably it was called Mr. Sanderson. He taught me GCSE business, which I went on to do economics at uni, and sort of definitely use a lot of that within the sort of social enterprise context at the moment. So firstly, from what he taught me was very useful, but I liked him because we had a laugh, we had quite a good rapport, and could have a talk about the lighter side of life, but he treated me totally normal. So I was generally quite a good young person, but I actually got in trouble more because I could talk too much, which probably become apparent now as I chant on. But so on one of the occasions when I was talking when I shouldn't have been, I had a tray in my wheelchair where I did my work, so he sort of jokingly but kind of seriously put me in the naughty corner for 20 minutes to, kind of sort of make the point you can't be naughty just like everyone else. So, and I was 15, 16, so there was that kind of, there was a jovialness, but equally there was that he was not letting me get away with something just because I had a disability, which can happen really as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, has your mum and dad said anything about, sort of support services for the family, really?
So you mean Alton School?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we had a Crossroads, a local care agency. So from when I was about 10, I've got a younger sister who's 5 years younger than me, who isn't disabled. And I imagine when I got to the point I was 10 and Claire, my sister was 5, mum and dad were probably, still trying to work and keep the house sorted. It was, I imagine, starting to become, as I got a bit sort of bigger and older as well, a bit more difficult. So they came in 1 or 2 hours a week to help sort of pass me and to let mum and dad spend time with them or to do other things. And so I can totally understand why that worked and was needed for them, but I remember not wanting someone else to do my care. I wanted mum and dad to do it. So there were certain things I wouldn't let the carers do. I would still only let mum and dad do that. And I think the step where I then, I wouldn't say, I guess embraced having PAs was going to university, because mum and dad weren't around in the other room to quickly come in and do whichever the thing was I wanted. But certainly, kind of 10 years through the teen years as well, we did have an hour or two a week just to take the slack off a little bit.
What sort of things do you think have helped the most in terms of supporting you through school and then the transition to university in particular?
Okay. Yeah, maybe 3 things. I think one is I have a physical disability, so it's quite mechanical, and if I've got the wheelchair, the hoists, the functional support mechanisms, which funding is required to make that happen, then you're a long way forward. Without the wheelchair or the hoist, it's impossible to get around. So definitely the kind of base support, and also with PAs and LSAs, I've included that as well. Second thing was my family, no doubt about, and friends as well. Just the fact I had a very supportive, inclusive network of people that were wanting me to progress and do well. And when there were obstacles, they would either fight against that or find a way through it. So that was definitely a big thing as well. And then I think mindset, and that sort of probably has come from having had a good start and from having had that family support. But a lot of people mention I have a positive view to life, and that sort of put me in good stead in adulthood as well. So they're probably the 3 main things.
Okay. Thinking about, because I think many of the families here have children who we've heard in some of the seminars in particular haven't got a very obvious disability. And so I think one of the stories was that if a mum went into a shop with her child who is obviously blind, everybody's very sympathetic when there are problems or issues, but when she takes her child who has more behavioural issues but physically looks fine, then people actually automatically assume it's the parent's fault rather than the child's fault. Have you come across any sort of negative attitudes or people saying things to you or about you along the way that?
Yeah, on the whole, it's been quite good experiences in that sense. I mean, I think in some respects you touched on if someone notices you have a disability and they're more accommodating, that can also very easily become patronising and sympathetic or almost pity. So the reactions can be almost too leaning towards positive, if that makes sense. So that's probably the one I've come up against more, where people would ask, my friend or my PA if I have sugar in my tea, that kind of vibe. I'm sure at school there was the odd moment where one of, a friend or classmate would say something that maybe linked to having a disability, but I think my view was it was, the same way kids are just a bit nasty sometimes to each other anyway. It was certainly never ongoing and all about my disability. It was more just banter really. So again, I think that's been a fortunate side in a sense, but I think while there are elements of luck that you could say, oh well, I was never bullied and that's fortunate or lucky, I think equally the beginning and having the statement and the planning and made that happen as well. So I guess there are ways to try and lead that as well.
Now you've got quite a lot of aspirations in your work and on your website about your vision for the future. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, I think it started having kind of been to school and to uni and travelled and done things for me, and I then needed to get a job, and that was the next progression. There was a lot of difficulties finding work at first. I was applying to sort of businessy jobs in London, and one way or another it didn't happen, only for a month or so, but sort of a few things didn't come off. And then a job came up at Scope, the disability charity in St Ives, where I was going back to from Coventry after 4 years. And it was a sort of admin HR role, but it was perfect to test my energy levels, to learn about the world of work. And I think, if I'm honest, the plan was a year later to move where I thought I would be going, sort of City of London type thing. And I was just very taken by, I'd only ever known my experience with disability, and to then read about case studies and the policies and see the campaigning that Scope did. It was quite an eye-opener, and I think, in some ways I had to go through some self-adjustment about having always been so positive and not considered my disability that much. It was almost this whole realising and having an identity that, well, I am disabled and there are things that are more difficult, and also there's a lot of other people that find that hard as well. So the knock-on of that was I stayed at Scope for about 5 years, more in fundraising, but I then started a blog which was talking about just what we are here, like my life experiences and how, when there's a problem, things I did to overcome it. And that blog, sort of through Twitter and Facebook, grew quite quickly. So last June I left the day job and started Social Enterprise, which I guess has 3 main areas really. One is I run a magazine called Disability Horizons. It's just an online magazine. The other part is e-learning products. So I run monthly webinars on whether it's travel or employment or just different topics, and bring in other speakers to help sort of, give helpful information. And then a sort of consultancy side. So I work with councils and charities, and a lot more around online and social media as well, but generally around disability. So that's the kind of area I'm in with work. And I think that vision you talked about is, to use the internet as a tool, but it's probably more about the sort of positive message that, there are difficulties, and we all know those difficulties too well, but I think we talked in the seminar earlier that you have to be aspirational, you have to aim high, and then take the slow, calm steps. It's not going to happen overnight, but that it can happen eventually, and that's the kind of message I'm just trying to put out there.
Yeah, and I think that there's some bullet points on your website which were saying, about the role of parents and guardians and carers, and what difference they can make.
Absolutely.
And I think again it was to do with, wasn't it, not giving up, and about having high expectations.
And it's a balance, I think, because mum and dad were never just fighting the whole time. There was a sort of a balancing act of knowing when to pick the battles, I guess, that some things are so fundamental that you have to make it happen, but then there's sometimes the little things, like if I'm going through a shopping centre and people stare because I'm in a wheelchair, it's annoying, but equally, mum and dad wouldn't sort of take every moment up on themselves to correct that, and I think that enabled the positivity stuff to come out as well. So.
I think Debs this morning showed us a lovely, it looked like a tube line on her presentation, and they had all the, these are all the feelings that we go through as parents, and you had all the nice happy ones like joy and pride and what have you on the top, and then all the, when you've had a sleepless night and you're feeling pretty grotty or in despair or whatever it might be, and so it depends where you are on that journey as to how you will react when somebody says something or stares in a funny way or what have you. On a good day, you'll let it ride over you. On a bad day, you might actually say, no, I'm going to make an issue of this. This person needs to learn something today.
Yeah, like I said, there's a kind of external factor of tiredness or stress. We all react, we all have bad days, but I think if people can take a step back and see that bigger picture, you are making a positive progress, you can naturally allow some things to just wash over you more because you see it in a forward direction. But yeah, if you just can't see the wood for the trees and it's all very new and very difficult, then I think it's going to take time to work through. But you'll get there in the end.
Absolutely. I think this is why forums like this is really important, because it can provide not only information but support to families, and your blog is another one that provides information and support and enables people to realise what is possible. And again, there's some of the things that I've seen and read that, really make me realise that there are people out there who understand, because you can get quite isolated, I think, sometimes when you have children with disabilities, because you don't go to so many places and meet so many people and those sorts of things that people were talking about earlier today. So it's absolutely fantastic. We're going to finish on one last thing, which is tell us about one of your exciting journeys and what you've been doing recently. Because you've been to Spain and Turkey.
Yeah, so this year I did a European Union like a voluntary service programme. So I lived in the north of Spain for 2 months, working with disadvantaged children and just sort of doing separate to my normal work. That was an amazing experience. Then I went to Turkey for a training week, and then I was flown to Tenerife, where I'm doing some consultancy for a disability travel company. That's been since the turn of the year, and all the work as well. So it's been busy.
Yeah, and there's an interesting YouTube clip, is there not, of which I'm sure your mother had a heart attack over what she saw.
Is this the eczema thing? Yeah. Have you heard of the Calvert Trust?
Yeah.
They do adventure sports activities for disabled people. They asked us to go to cover it for the magazine, and I think I went when I was about 13 and vaguely remembered it. They had me up near the roof of a sports hall, swinging the length of it, and I'm not going to do that again, to be honest. It's all for the mag, but it was interesting.
Absolutely. Is it okay if I just ask if there's any questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Does anybody in the audience have any questions?
Can I just ask you, you said you got a younger sister?
Yeah.
The reason why I'm asking you this question, because I've got a 7-year-old son who's just got 2 older, and I've got 2 older children, and my middle son is just kind of commenting on how much time I'm supporting to my 7-year-old son, and occasionally kind of says quite hurtful things, but it's because I've had to devote so much time to the to my youngest child. But did you have any feelings, or did your sister have any feelings about how much time your parents were devoting to you? And did you know?
Yeah, I don't think she ever said anything so maybe as vocal, but I think there's always been a bit of a banter about, she'll say, when I come back from my travels and my mum's a bit excited, she goes, your favourite son's, your favourite child's coming back. But to be honest, now that we're both adults, we get on so well, and I think when we were teenagers we squabbled, and whether some of that exactly, and we'd have to ask Claire how much, if that was to do with me having a disability or not. But as I mentioned, we did bring in some care support for me to free mum and dad up, and then they would make a special effort to say to Claire, we're going to do something, and so she knew that they were making that effort for her while explaining the needs I have, and that we're not doing it because they don't love Claire, it's just I have a disability and that's what has to happen.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Martyn.
Did you have one?
Sorry.
It was only not very important. I was saying, do you find that people talk to you as if you've got a learning disability? Because my friends who have children who are wheelchair bound, people talk to them as if they're little, even though they're quite grown up now, and it's like, actually, so I just wondered what your experience was of that.
Yeah, I guess probably every time I meet someone I expect the unexpected, and I've had weird reactions. Certainly in bars when people have had a drink, you get asked all sorts of stuff. Essentially, I start on, that they're not going to treat me differently, but if they do, I'm ready to be quite imposing that actually, this is who I am, this is what I do, and then quite quickly they'll change their attitude.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you ever so much, everybody. Thank you.